Official statistics partner.
As ever, Dublin just have too much. 6 in a row champions after a 2-14 to 15 point win over Mayo here at Croke Park. And Mayo gave it everything. They just couldn't quite match the class of Dublin, and you can't ignore the substitutes coming on and the impact they made. Brian Howard in particular, just brilliant when he came on. He scored a point, winning high balls, just moving the ball around. He spoiled one for Aidan O'Shea up near the hill end. Towards the end of the game, which, if O'Shea had claimed it, could have ended up with a goal opportunity there. But just the clinical nature of Dublin when they get in front of goals. The goals for Dean Rock, I mean, that was just seconds into it, and it just felt like this is just typical Dublin here, the way they just worked it through the hands and just palmed to the net by Dean Rock. And it kind of, at that stage, you thought this could end up being one of these beat-down All-Ireland finals, and that's happened to Mayo a couple of times in the past. But credit to Mayo, they came back and had it level a couple of minutes later. And then we had a very strange sort of a first half. Both teams were making the sort of mistakes you'd be frustrated at if you were watching an under-12 game. Turnover. But Dublin, when they were in a little bit of trouble, Con O'Callaghan, he stepped up and got that goal. Did a lovely... I think there was a lovely bit of interplay between James McCarthy, who gave it to Con. He did a 1-2 with Scully and punched it into the net. And Alan Brogan was saying on a show there during the week that the palmed goals or fisted goals are I think he used the term holy grail or something like that for Dublin forwards, but they're just so clinical with it. And the difference then going the other way is Mayo were not clinical. Owen McLaughlin got through at one stage, 56th minute, it was 2-9 to 14 points, so just a point in it, and he spills the ball out of his hand. Now either keep running through and blast it to the net if you can. It was a tight angle, so tough, but a little fist over the bar and you have the game level at that stage. And that would have broken a bit of a barren spell, because Mayo had gone 7 minutes without a point at that stage, and they didn't score for another 10 more. So during that second half, from the 49th minute to the 64th, it's a quarter of an hour there where you're not scoring at all, and Dublin are tacking on. Dublin tacked on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that was probably the moving period for Dublin during the middle of that second half. Like Paul Mannion comes in, he gets his score from a free. Dean Rock, obviously, he's knocking over frees there. I think he scored 1-4 overall, 4 of those frees. And the problem for Mayo is that when they were bringing on subs, they had to rejig their team, and it ended up with Stephen Cohen playing full back on Kieran Kilkenny, and Kilkenny stepped up in that second half. He finished up with 3 points. He had a brilliant All-Ireland final last year as well, but I think it always kind of spelled a little bit of trouble there, that Cohen would be very much out of his comfort zone back at full back, and he did fine. Like it's not that he got destroyed or anything like that, but like Kilkenny's influence kind of came to bear, and a couple of lovely balls delivered in. James McCarthy had one kick pass into him, and he just Kilkenny wheeled around, knocked it over the bar, and very difficult for someone of the frame of Cohen to be able to keep with him. And I think there was a certain inevitability about him getting a few scores when that matchup happened. Paddy Durkin had to go off. That's the problem for Mayo. When it comes down to it, they don't have the bench, and I'm looking at footage here now, and I'm looking down to players from Mayo, and they're dejected once again, and the Dubs are celebrating. They're obviously delighted. Brian Howard, can't help but notice him down there, brilliant. I thought Davy Byrne was excellent as well. He probably doesn't get the plaudits, but brilliant, and even driving the team out from the back towards in the second half when Mayo were trying to pile on a bit of pressure, and the way Dublin managed the game towards the end of it, just excellently managed. And for Dessie Farrell, he's actually taken over the mantle of Jim Gavin. And he had a couple of All-Ireland or a couple of disasters with the underage teams in between winning stuff, losing to Tipperary many years ago, which probably was not something that the Dubs would have expected, and then of course losing with the under-21s I think to Longford another year. So that's brilliant for him to kind of take over and winning All-Ireland in the first year, because the pressure after Jim Gavin doing the 5 in a row is obviously huge to sort of maintain that. A word about Mayo though, because obviously a lot of people respect them and love what they're doing, and they push teams so far, the likes of Dublin, year after year after year, and they just haven't gotten the reward for it. And I think anyone who kind of laughs at their misery, I mean, where would we be at in terms of football without Mayo? I mean, what a brilliant bunch of players. Because if they weren't coming back, okay, they were out of the game in the last 5 or so minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes even. We all knew it was done. But the entertainment they've given, I mean, Dublin have walked past everyone this year, and at least someone came out and gave them a game. And yet they're short a player or two. They don't have a Brian Howard to bring on. They don't have a Paul Mannion. I mean, Kevin McManaman doesn't even come on. Michael Darmacaulay, former footballer of the year, doesn't come on. Eric Lowndes, who started games, they were able to bring in Colin Basquel. This, such a serious Dublin unit. And I don't think today is the day to be talking about funding and all this different sort of stuff and the advantages or whatever. get into that another day. But they're just a collection of brilliant players, if you just want to look at it that way. Conor Callahan, I thought, had very influential periods in this game, scoring 1-1. Paddy Small, quiet enough game. A lot of Mayo did very well to keep a lot of those players very, very quiet. And then there's a couple of questions. How frustrated would you be as a Mayo person, having seen that hit that Michael Fitzsimons put on Lee Keegan? That was around the 46th, 47th minute, something like that. It led to a turnover, but that should have been a free, because he did hit him into the chest. I'm sure Fitzsimons didn't mean it, but he did hit him into the chest, so that should have been a free. And at that stage, if that goes over, the game is level. Now Mayo subsequently do level it, but that's not really the point. It was a shoulder into the chest, and maybe the referee, if he had to have the advantage of a replay, he might have looked at things differently, and who knows what sort of censures he would have had there. I thought it was interesting that Johnny Cooper was taken off during the second half, 54th minute, for Colin Basquel. So it was a forward for a back. So that was an attacking sort of a change, and that was brave. And Basquel definitely ran the legs off a couple of Mayo players now and again. Thought he made a big difference. But it's that throw-in goal again. That's two halves in a row in All-Ireland finals. The second half last year, when Owen Merchant scored that goal directly from the throw-in. And then this one here, where Dublin worked the goal after 20, even fewer seconds than that. Just looking at Stephen Cluxton lift the cup here. Players going wild. So they're obviously delighted with the All-Ireland final. Just Dublin able to get the marks at the right time, knock over their frees. It's a level of accuracy. Both teams, they had a slipshod sort of first half, and it was, as I said, a bit like an under-12 game. But Dublin tied that down in the second half. Scully knocks over his point, Fenton knocks over his point. There's just so many powerful runners and guys that are able to keep it ticking over, and Mayo just couldn't. And the defensive organisation of Dublin, and just the fact that they're able to attack and keep going, and the level of fitness, and they're just all absolute units. So 6 in a row, it'll never be done again by another team. But the flip side is, when will Dublin stop winning them? It's hard to imagine, but I'd just love to see a competition where in the same season Dublin have to play Mayo, Kerry, Tyrone, Donegal, and so on and so forth, but also that Mayo have to play Kerry, Dublin, whatever. We need a competition where the top teams are playing each other all the time. I'll probably do another video on that another time. But superbly seen out by Dublin, 6 in a row champions, brilliant group of footballers, an awful lot of players there now with their 8 All-Ireland medals, and probably 1 or 2 more in them. Let me know what you think, who was your man of the match, and any thoughts on the game or how it went.